3:57.
This is 4. That thing's slow. Actually,
Okay.
hold on.
Parks Commission meeting Tuesday, July 16th, Greenwood City Hall. Mr. Terry, would you call the roll?
Yes. Cindy Bell.
Here.
Jennifer Travis.
Here.
Kay Headley.
Here.
Brandon Tate.
Here.
Otis Edwards.
Here.
There's a quorum.
Okay, thank you. We have the minutes. Can we get an approval for the minutes, please?
I'll make a motion, we approve.
You have a motion? You have a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Bell.
Yes.
Mrs. Travis.
Yes.
Mrs. Headley.
Yes.
Mr. Tate.
Yes.
Mr. Edwards.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Committee reports, Freedom Fest.
Outside of the heat, I thought we had a pretty good event. It seemed like the heat did detract some folks from showing up. Understandably so. With the total tally for the day, we did have just a shade over 20 food trucks. And then close to 80 craft and artisan vendors were there. One of the cooler parts of the day, something that I was most proud of, we had several city employees come and work the event. Then also we had members of the high school trap team, the Beta Club, the wrestling team, and FBLA volunteer their time to come help the event too. So those folks being able to help was a huge help. Even I think we had somewhere around 25, 30 volunteers total, but it made all the difference in the world, streamlining the event overall. We will have a last committee meeting for the year on the 25th of this month to discuss process improvements and also start some preparation for next year.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Did you happen to by any chance get any feedback from our vendors? Were they happy with the amount of money they make? What I'm saying is, I know it was down. I went down there for an hour and a half.
Mhm.
But anyway, but I'm just wondering if you happen to hear some positive, negative, whatever.
I heard positive from a few of the food truck vendors. I know that my wife was set up out there, and we were kind of in the median for what we would typically sell at something like this.
No, I thought you did a really fine job.
Thanks.
How did the day before food truck opening it on the day before the 4th of July? How did that go?
I think, and not to slight the food vendors, but even if they didn't make a dime, that the July 3rd idea is worth it, just so we don't have to deal with the headache of trying to get the food trucks in place the morning of. Because between the 5K and then managing all the vendors that are setting up inside of the square, I think the morning of the 4th of July, we had to put 2 food trucks in place. And it was like we had all the time in the world to do anything else.
Yeah, I passed through there after the pancake breakfast and everything looked great.
And it was most of the vendors made some money on the 3rd. People were showing up on the 3rd to come and eat dinner. So it seemed like it was still a cool community event.
I thought one thing that's really positive is the fact that the way you turn the stage, the way you put the people to look at the events, and you got them, and I know it's not the food vendors' fault, but you got all them generators moved
Good.
up there
Okay.
where the noise and activity could be and not interfere with
Good.
the way you turned that.
That's what we wanted.
I liked it.
Nice.
Even though I got lost first time, I was looking for it in the wrong place, but anyway.
We also, part of moving that is that we had the sound so directional that people that were eating to the right of the stage or eating underneath those tents were able to enjoy their meal without having to scream at each other to talk
Yeah.
over music or,
I know the generators have got to be there, but
right.
boy, they are noisy.
They are extremely noisy.
Fireworks look great.
Good. Good. Yeah, they did a great job. I'm just going to
Any
stay here.
questions?
I'm going to stay here,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Trails Committee,
We met back in May. It's been a long time ago. We kind of talked about we're working on maybe updating our master plan, seeing where the community is moving to and where they want to go. We talked about this fall that once we get it approved through the water department and everything like that, maybe working on cleaning out some of the back trails along the lake so that bikes can go back in there. Also, we want to make sure that we know property lines so that we're not infringing on anyone's, like if we clean off an area, we want to make sure that we know where our lake side is, where their side is. So we don't want to do that. So we're working on that. We talked about and I see in the notes later on about continuing from the Oaks
Mhm.
all the way to the back of Bell Park. It looks like we're at 30% complete on the engineering, but RDOT has approved us to move our grant from the lake to doing that.
That's correct.
And then we had a discussion of maybe talking about working with the school and the agri department, and maybe we need to talk to, is there an art committee or an art club?
There's an art guild.
An art guild. And we talked about possibly putting art along the trail. I talked to someone and we talked about putting, it's like barn quilt artwork on the trail. And so that as you come around a curve, you would see an art. And it is, and I've been doing a little bit of research. I haven't done as much as I should have. I'll be upfront and honest with you. I apologize, but it's kind of neat. It is just like quilt patterns that you'd find on a quilt. And this would also tie into our quilts, so airing of the quilts and everything like that. When school comes back, I will try to talk to Mr. Linderman and see if the agri department could build them, find out how much it would cost, and then maybe talk to the art guild and have some of our ladies. To be honest with you, I don't know what it's going to look like. I'll be upfront and honest with you.
I
But-
think it's similar to what's on the barn back behind in our historical.
What I'm saying is, what the framing,
tall and-
how
Are you
how
tacking
tall?
on a tree
And
or?
yeah, and all that stuff. But that would be something that we need to bring before the Parks Committee to see if that is even something that they are interested in, is having some kind of trail artwork. We also talked about looking at along our trail, putting more indigenous flowers and plants that bloom and stuff. I know that goes against some of the committee's members who like to have everything mowed down, but something for bees and make it more natural and stuff like that. So those are things that we have been discussing on our trails committee.
Okay.
But before, I want to talk to Mr. Linderman before I make anything else see if he's able to, or if we were able to work with the schools on that kind of stuff.
I like the native wildflower
Mhm.
subject. And I think you could put like a sign up that says, this is a native wildflower area, and it wouldn't get mowed then, maybe? Your guys would be like, less to mow.
Yeah.
But that is just something that we were kind of talking about, especially with, I've been doing a lot of research, I've been looking that we're losing a lot of bees and just having pollinators.
For some reason, where is the boundary from the lake? And then I think 350 feet
From the water?
from the water. I'm not sure.
That's why he's checking it, or Casey's looking into it, because we do not want to be cutting onto anybody's land. Plus, we need to get permission from the water department before we do anything like that, because we don't want to, it's a watershed, and we don't want to do anything that's going to damage our watershed. So Casey was looking into the boundaries and what we can do. So we want to be respectful of our neighbors.
Without a doubt.
Good. Thank you.
I was out at the lake trail on Saturday, and there were a couple spots where I was literally like this. And then once I got to a certain spot, maybe half a mile down, I couldn't go any further. And I don't know.
Greenwood, Lake Greenwood.
My understanding is that it used to be heavily maintained by not a committee, but just folks that frequented the trails.
Volunteers, yeah.
Yeah, we would, every once in a while, we would go out there with leaf blowers and kind of blaze the path, more or less. It sounds like it's becoming our responsibility now.
Which was at the east loop or the south loop?
I cut across the bridge, went down.
That's the east loop.
It used to be pretty clear through.
Pavilion.
Did you go past the little pavilion?
Yeah,
once
I
you
just
got?
hiked
Yeah.
it. It's,
Okay.
it's pretty
Uh,
overgrown. I got stickers the last time I
We
was there. I was like,
have,
ow.
we have in the
Yeah.
past at one time, I think, if I can remember, we had a work day. And I cooked hot dogs and stuff at that pavilion down there on
Oh, yeah.
the south
Okay.
east
That's cool.
side. We all gathered up and we had, I don't know, just anybody would come with our little, trash sacks and whatever. That's just what we have done. It worked pretty well.
I know Bobby Price, he's a volunteer firefighter here. He's been really good about trying to make it out there. And he takes his own weed eater, own blower, and he's typically the one guy that's out there getting after it. And I think that he's been a little slower on the get up lately just because things aren't marked the way they're supposed to be. And I think that's partially my fault because I've been waiting on Boy Scouts to do it. And I'm trying to give the Scouts an opportunity to work. We pretty well decided at the last Trails Committee meeting that we're just going to go ahead and take it over. And we're going to mark the trail to where we can maintain it. We know what we're maintaining. We have a clear trail that we can maintain because it's marked. Everybody's happy, but the first step in doing that was also making sure that our property, we knew where our property, what or who the property owners were, or where our trail was laying on the property.
Talking about that signage, where are we with signage?
That was the same part. It's all part of that Boy Scout project. I think that I'm done waiting on them. I haven't heard anything back. I've asked Rod a couple times. I think I'm going to ask him one more time. And if Michael is not going to pursue his Eagle Scout, then we're just going to get it done.
Can the street department get you a road sign? Street sign?
I can probably build a sign out of 6x6s that I buy at Jaeger's that will actually look nice.
There are just those little round markers up there, right, on trees.
Yeah, so
That
that's
Tammy put
that's the
there.
idea for the marking. Potentially, I don't know if we've been to the Greenway in Fayetteville. They have like nice laser cut markings that tell you what trail you're on, and they're just tacked on the side of 6x6s with a nice beveled edge on top. That would be something simple we could just stick in the ground and it would still look really classy.
Because it goes back to saying, people don't know where the east loop begins
Sure.
to get on the loop.
Yeah. And
Same thing with the south loop.
I think that we've talked about this several times, and I'm trying to give an Eagle Scout an opportunity for a project that he wants to pursue, but we're not getting anywhere with him. So, I mean, maybe it's a fall project for us instead of him. Something we can do when the weather cools down a little bit. I'll call Rod tomorrow and then I'll ask him one more time.
I think there's an age limit for the Eagle Scout, correct?
Yeah,
Is it
he's still within
18?
his age.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that he's, I think that
18
he's
per se.
a junior right now.
He'll be a senior.
That's correct.
Okay, tree and plant board.
Yes, we had our quarterly meeting this morning. We were a little short group, but we were able to sit down and talk to Hunter with Planning Commission and get some information on our current green space and ordinances and what all might be facing us in the future in the way of tree canopy and green space. And with Hunter and Casey there, we were able to gather quite a bit of information about that. I think it'd be helpful. But that's primarily all we did this morning. No, we didn't implement anything new or anything at all.
Casey, you think this fall, when things are not hot, we can plant some pine trees where the trees have been removed off the loop? You got $1,000? I think we can buy a lot of little pine trees for that money.
Sure.
Can you put it on your list, please?
Yep. I just had a bunch of like Christmas
still
trees
can.
we could have stuck out there, but they would have burned up. I think they burned up where they were.
If you would speak into the mic, because I think I'm having trouble hearing just whenever you talk.
Okay. Do you have any items to add to the agenda?
Uh,
No? Go to business items. You're up, Casey.
So we had a side by side. It's a Kawasaki unit. It is, in my opinion, beyond state of repair, but the street department has interest in it. It runs per se, but it doesn't move. Will
That's a problem.
I know, right? The mechanic seems to think that he can bring it back to life, and he likely can. To me, it's not worth much to us. They came up to me the other day and asked if we could transfer it over to them. So I don't mind. It's not doing us any good where it is. And we were just kind of working out a price between each other, and we thought $1,500 was fair. So the street department would pay us $1,500. We do these type of things. I don't want to say often, but we have moved equipment from department to department. I think most recently we transferred a truck from planning to the street department. So something we want to bring in front of y'all just to see if you would be willing side by side to the street department.
What will you do without a side by side?
The same thing we've been doing. We haven't really been using it extensively.
Do you want to replace it?
Potentially, but not immediately, just because like I said, we're doing pretty well.
I make a motion that can I do that? I'll make a motion that we swap this thing out.
Sell it to the street
Well,
department.
yeah, we sell it because we got in trouble a few years ago with the street department. We had to buy a sign for them, remember? So
Yep.
you have to buy it. If it for $10, you got
Right,
to buy it
right.
legally, right? So,
Yeah, we just thought 1,500 was agreeable.
yeah, and that we'll get that back from them. We'll have to pay them something
Mm.
down the road, I imagine.
We just deducted from the 7,500 we budgeted.
Yeah, and that's something else we talked about too, was just
Well, that's
writing off some labor that they provide for us. I thought it'd be a little cleaner just to
you need to write this up.
sell it.
Decent. I didn't do a very good job.
Yeah, yeah. But
You could-
Be cleaner.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, Chris, you got 7,500 to budget. Yeah,
Do you need a second?
Yes.
On that
Okay.
motion, I'll second the motion to sell it.
thank you.
we need to vote. Ms. Bell,
Yes.
Mrs. Travis,
Yes.
Mrs. Headley,
Yes.
Mr. Tate,
Yes.
and Mr. Edwards.
Yes.
That's unanimous.
Foundation reports.
No report.
You're up, Casey.
Okay, so maybe Tom and I can kind of work in concert with each other. I can give you an update on the splash pad, and then you want to delve into the financials on it. So right now, if you guys drive by, you'll see that the entire site is more or less up to rough grade, not finished grade just yet. Right now, they're working on, you'll see a block building on the side if you drive by. They're working on, that's the restroom building. Also, next to that block building, you'll see a larger hole in the ground, and that's where they'll run all of the underground plumbing for the fixtures that'll go under. That plumbing will go underneath the concrete. We have an update from the street director this week. He said Fox Run Road is set to be underway 7/22. We're still waiting on water and sewer. We're afraid that some of the grades, we had to change the grades of the entire project once we ran into rock. And part of the concern is that we raised the project site so much that we might run into issue with grades on sewer, to where those grades will be too steep. So they're looking at that right now. It should just be something that they need to check and then make adjustments as far as how deep they're burying a sewer line in the ground. So it shouldn't take too terribly long, but it is a delay nonetheless.
What is the estimated time for completion?
I think we discovered a couple weeks ago when we had all the contractors in the room that it's not going to be this year.
Define not this year.
I am pressing really hard for them to have it done by October if I had the opportunity to go sit in front of the state for the outdoor recreation grant. That way, at least I'll be able to say, we didn't have our project done by August when I submitted my application to you, but we have it done now. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to have kids out there playing on it in October, but for all intents and purposes, the grant the terms of the grant will be satisfied. They'll still be able to give us the last payment, and then it just looks a lot better for the grant itself when you sit in front of that committee and say we've finished our project that we had on the books for a couple of years. No, kids will not play on it this year. I would like for it to be done within the calendar year. We're pushing hard for it to be done by the end of October. I
Now,
talked to
when
Travis. Go ahead.
When
Sorry.
Travis was here last time, I was under the impression that we would be able to open this season.
That's right. Yeah. And
Okay, so just making sure that I wasn't hallucinating.
Yep. No, you're totally right. I think that if our project, or if it was only a splash pad, I think that would be the case.
Question for either Casey or Tom. We budgeted on that splash pad $110,000 for professional fees. Where are we?
I don't have the exact numbers on me right now, but
Because you're talking about going back more engineering now.
Sorry?
There's more engineering.
Not on
now.
our side.
Not on our side.
That's water and sewer.
So they're the ones that got to anticipate them rocks.
More rock. Yep.
Yeah, trust me there.
Yeah, but if they can, and I think I'm really hoping the same. I know Crawford is the same contractor that is doing the splash pad is won the bid for the water and sewer project. So I'm hoping that they anticipated some rock and they baked that into their pricing. The good thing about that is that once they get to the site, once they get to the splash pad site, we've raised it so much. We've basically teed it up for them to where if they can just get up there, all they have to do is get across.
You spent 37,000 on 110 in engineering so far.
Say again.
37,000 roughly on 110,000. Right. You don't have all the bills.
Is that for this year or how much from last year?
Well, I don't know. I only have the just right now in front of you for this year. But that's all inclusive of this project, so, because I moved all of the engineering fees to the project over. We've spent somewhere in the neighborhood of about 400 and some odd thousand. I think I showed you the project cost.
Because I thought we spent $100,000 last year.
110 is this year. It's all this year.
Okay.
We started getting bills in February.
Excuse me. I'll go back and look.
You want me to keep going, Tom, or do you want to talk about the splash pad financials right now?
Here's
You're right.
the financials.
Continue, Case.
You got it. We finished the new disc golf course, and they actually got to play the end of last month. This one apparently is a lot more challenging, which is what we wanted. So we kind of have opposing courses to where the original course is somewhat easy and this new course is very challenging. Liberty Park Bridge, I got an update from the gentleman that's building the bridge for us. And this will be a very unique, cool, old school, wooden covered bridge. So it's going to be, I for some reason, I always think of the word charming. It's going to be very cool. He told me he's working on finishing the lumber package. He's cutting all the lumber at his house, and he's going to come to Liberty and just put it together for us. Like Brandon said, the trail from the Oaks to Bell Park, we're at 30% with the engineer. I think that those plans they're gonna be able to zip through those pretty quick if they're able to get comments back from the state. They have to turn those plans into the state to meet the requirements of the grant. We do have one easement that I'm working on acquiring. It's just past the Oaks, and once I get that, we'll be off to the races more or less. We talked about the Michael Turner Scout Project. Mountain bike trails, my wish is that we take the $10,000 and potentially send that to funding for the splash pad, which would just help us with cash flow a little bit. And we can talk about that in a second. The Inclusive Park, there's a fundraiser for that tonight. So if y'all need dinner options, drive through Geno's and grab sandwich, spaghetti, pizza, whatever you choose. Oh, you can also have ice cream. There's talks of starting to phase the project and just have a parking lot and some of the rough grading done, just so folks can see some progress. We're working with an engineer firm to see if they would potentially donate their services to us. And then Steve Beam Construction has already donated all of the in-kind construction work. And he's going to come in and to basically make a construction pad and then work with another one of his buddies, Mike Moore, to build a guttering and a very nice parking lot. So it might be parking for the school for a little bit. We're hoping that we get the state grant, we can kind of accelerate things. I think having the plan to phase looks a lot better with those state grants too. The pavilion, no major issues. So far this month, we've hosted, not so far, but in total, we're hosting 15 events. We actually had one come in yesterday that they wanted it the same night. So we've hosted 16. And last year we hosted 9. I think that's all I got.
Okay. Have you used any, did you use any you got anybody else on this part other than the scheduling? You know, last time I thought you might need some help.
Just me.
You're it, huh?
Hmm.
Okay.
I noticed on in Greenwood what's happening. Somebody asked about want to have a party or something. Somebody answered, called it Greenwood Parks and Recreation.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
A lot of people ask some funny stuff.
Yeah, all the time.
Are we getting our full benefit of the contractors, the subcontractors we got a contractor for the mowing, and then we got a subcontractor to the subcontractor.
I think I see what you're saying.
In other words, it looks good and you had it all ready and we didn't have any problem when it wasn't raining. But, and it still looks good, but I'm just saying, sometimes I'm sure glad you got that pickleball thing fixed.
Oh, the net?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it turns out all the parts you buy for tennis nets come from Great Britain. It takes a little bit.
Anyway, I'm not complaining about.
Oh, that's fine.
Parks or whatever. I'm just wondering if we're getting the full benefit of our subcontractors.
I don't, that's a great question. I think next year, along with some of the things we talked about for Bell Park, I did get a quote that might be worth updating too. I got a quote from Jackie to power wash and stain the pavilion, and it was in the $10,000 range, which is basically what they did it for last time.
Power washing the pavilion.
And staining.
And painting.
What was that? When did we do that, Cinda?
You did it 3 or 4 years ago, I think.
It was about what, $10,000?
Yeah, sounds like about, yeah.
Yeah, and last time we bought the material, so that would not include materials, and we chose a material that was $600 to $700 a 5-gallon bucket.
Well, I'd like for you to entertain this. I was going to paint my house. I had one of these things and paint went to $100 a gallon
Mm-hmm.
to stain it and get it all ready. Well, I just went ahead and priced out a metal one, aluminum sided. And I just went with that because there wasn't that much difference in cost. I don't know whether that would be a good thing for the pavilion or not, but it sure worked out well for me in my house.
Yeah, I can understand 600 a gallon. I mean, I just painted my house and I paid $55 for a gallon of paint. So it's ridiculous.
It's
Well,
insane.
In all honesty, I think it was about $3,000 difference.
Oh, really?
Between the metal and having it stained, and I had it stained probably 10, 12 years ago.
Hmm.
And I decided it's just worth the extra. I'm happy with it so far, but anyway, I don't know what that would do to whether even the pavilion would qualify for it.
Yeah, I don't know how much that would change. That would change a lot.
Do we want to pursue and check it out, or just let this thing drop?
Well, can we go until next spring?
Well, I just,
I'm not saying, my intention was to put that in next year's budget.
yeah, I'm not talking about it now.
And I've also asked him to address the some of the wood on the pergola that's over the amphitheater or the common area. It's starting to get a little dated. And then he's also looking at some of the pavilions around the park as well to see if they need some new 6x6s stabbed in.
What's the material on the pavilion? Is it cedar?
Not sure, but it would
I'm
almost have to
surprised-
be.
I'm surprised the stain didn't last more than 3 years. That doesn't sound very good.
I think we chose the wrong product.
Okay.
They chose something that was. He told me it was a maintainer, and typically, whenever they're power washing and replacing, they just use a stain.
Yeah, that stain sucks up that paint, trust me. But you think it ought to be 50 gallon, winds up to be 75. So anyway, I don't know whether you want to pursue that, but next year, we're talking,
We got time.
yeah, we can slow this thing down, figure it out.
Mhm.
But it does need done. Cinda, it does need done.
Concrete floor needs a little work too.
Since recently.
Oh, there's cracks in the concrete floor.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know.
Can they do anything about that on a slab that size? Can they repair it?
Yeah, it can be repaired.
I can ask. I mean, I thought you were, I had it buffed a month and a half
Yeah,
ago,
it looked good.
Yeah.
It looked good.
but I can try to find a concrete repair guy to see if they can fill in those joints or,
Might be worth checking.
sure.
Thank you, Jason.
Ready?
We're ready.
June 28th, mayor went down and encumbered the city by $750,000 for you. Money was deposited into the new checking account, that's a virtual account under general. It's a restricted account to be used solely for the construction and the cost associated with creating and building the splash pad. In addition to that, also, we established a specific department under Parks called, and you'll see it on all your reports now, called Parks-Splash Pad. So it's a department that is housing all of the costs associated with and revenues that are generated for the purpose of supplying funding for the splash pad. So that'll be something that'll be in addition to your packet. The account is a virtual account. Like I said, it's not an actual physical account at the bank. I do want to point out to you that the costs that have been originally paid from the city sales and use tax, all parks fund that you see up there, we moved into the splash pad. We did an entry to move those costs and fund back the city sales and use tax account for the cost associated with Crawford Construction, Vortex Incorporated, and the bill that we're paying for the electrical installation of all the electric out at the splash pad site. Previously, those were paid under city sales and use tax because we had not received the loan yet, and we had not established by approval of council the actual accounts. So once that happened, we went ahead and moved it into the park splash pad checking. That's why you don't see $750,000 there. You only see about $500,496 sitting there as of June 30th. And that's because we went ahead and funded back the city sales and use tax all parks, which went from somewhere in the neighborhood of 400,000 up to 729,000, based on the amounts that we had transferred back. So all in all, you're looking at a $1.2 million all restricted general funds for the, under the control of the Parks Department. If you look up at the top, you'll see up here where it's circled, you'll see the Parks A&P grant fund is in the negative. Yeah, I'm concerned about it being in the negative, but it's being in the negative because your largest event that you had that comes under that grant fund is the Freedom Fest. And that is cost that exceeded the amount that you had been collecting by month from the A&P Commission. So in addition to that, if I were to roll forward to today, this would be today's numbers up there on the screen. It's now $16,797, and that number, until you receive more funding from A&P over the next 5 months, it's going to be in the negative. It's not a real bank account. It is virtual to the general fund, so it is funded out of the general fund. But by the end of the year, that will have to come back into the positive. So there's a potential that right now A&P is solid. It's right at what they're budgeting to be. They're at their 5% growth you're getting the money you are intended to be receiving this year. I don't see that being a problem. Your lower cost items that are coming up, which is your Fall Fest, and a couple of the smaller events that are held under the Park Safety Grant Fund, that money is, the majority of it's now past due. So I'm hoping that that will come back into positive territory. If you'll notice, your budget is for it to end up $25. That's $24.36. Casey came back with a proposal to, but if the budget hits exactly the way it's supposed to, you're gonna be pretty much breaking starting the next year. The revised budget didn't change. I just wanted you to know we are watching that amount, and we'll keep you abreast of that every month. As far as your city sales and use tax, all parks, concern last night was that the city sales and use tax is designed by purpose to fund the construction of the splash pad. That's what that money was for. That's what everybody's been pretty much stating and making sure that the public understands that that's where the money goes. You're budgeted, trust me, the city sales and use tax is paying for this, even though it's shifting to the new department. That's solely so that you guys have one department to look at to see what the costs are and what the revenue streams are for the splash pad. But it is funded by the loan of $750,000. City sales and use tax is paying the debt service on that, both the principal and the interest. And you are also contributing heavily to the amount that would need to be funded once the grant is fully paid to you. I want to let you know that your budget for this year for the city sales and use tax was at $376,000. The reason that's not $500,000 is because that includes the inclusive park transfer of $275,000 to the inclusive park. However, once you decided to go with option 3, which was a larger dollar amount for the actual construction of the splash pad, because you put back in the bathrooms, perimeter fencing, and the parking lot, that amount that would be contributed by city sales and use tax went up dramatically. And in discussions with Casey, we talked about, is the inclusive park money actually going to need to be funded in 2024? And the answer was no. That money is probably going to be somewhere down the 2025 period. So that'll be included in next year's budget. So if you take that out of the city sales and use tax budget for all parks, you're looking at that number of $255,000 to be, if the budget goes as planned, that $255,000 will be your residual balance in city sales and use tax. We talked about that, where my comfort level was as far as your reserve balance in city sales and use tax, and I said $500,000 was my normal benchmark. But in light of where we were on the construction of the splash pad, and in your agreement, you said that you could lower that threshold down to 250,000 or $250,000. And realizing that your goal is to be replenishing that over the next 5-year period. So you're right at where your comfort level is. And I'm going to show you how that came about. So this is your splash pad department now, up there on the screen. You're looking at the annual, what we have already received was $125,000 towards the grant. That's money in the bank. We also received the $20,000 from the first transfer of A&P. What you have budgeted is $168,160 from the previous, when we fixed the budget as of January of this year. The amount that was budgeted for the capital project of the splash pad was $1,017,000. That went to the $1,400,000 in the selection of option 3 because of the cost. The fees professional is also budgeted there at $110,000, so that would bring your amount to $1,100,000 under the unrevised budget. So now we're going to look at exactly what the budget that you selected has become. Notice the revenue stayed the same up there at the top, 168,000, and you look at the 1,000,408, which comes from the Crawford Construction, Vortex, and Swepco. It's not Swepco, it's that, yeah, it's Swepco. It's basically a division of it. So it's 1,000,509 is what you're looking at when you add everything together in the expense side. Notice that that leaves a shortage or a shortfall of 1,000,001, and that's because the 750,000 is not reflected here. It's reflected as a balance sheet item as a debt. And what you're going to be paying is the debt service on that. So what I wanted to do is now reflect the revenue to where that comes out to be the $750,000. And so what you have here is the revised revised department budget for the splash pad. So you're looking at funding or transferring $605,263 from the city sales and use tax in order to make this work. That's 730,000 plus the 20,000 is your 750,000 that you received from the loan that you're going to be paying the debt service on. That's why it's not in here, because we had to book it to the balance sheet and we paid the principal amount. So trust me, you're going to be paying a lot more than 750,000. You're paying $114,000 just in interest. So, but the reason that this 20,000 is not included, so this number doesn't actually hit 750,000, is because A&P restricted that money. They said it was to be used for additional paid-in capital or to offset the debt service, not to offset the construction. So we have to, that has to go towards paying down the debt service. So we're going to, at the end of every year, we're going to take that money from A&P and we're going to make one additional payment of $20,000 principal only. So what that's going to do at the back end is shorten your period of maturity and lower your interest amount that you're going to be paying. So you're going to get a back end benefit from this to lower the cost. So that's not a bad thing. So now I'm going to look at, this is what your revised budget is. Now that those numbers may be small, so I'm going to just harp on this bottom section, and I will go to it right here. So the splash pad funding was derived of 750,000, 239,000 for the grant, 168,000 for the amount that was budgeted. You see the expense side of it came in at 1.5 million. That leaves a shortfall that we're going to be going to city council for a budget amendment of 437,000. So if you take the 437 and the 168, it's your 605 that we're looking at, because we're excluding the $20,000. So all we're having to additionally provide is the 437,000. This is the actual how we got to the 255,000. You started the year with your fund balance at $656,000. You're looking at a shortfall right now, and I'm going to go back to this one and I'll make it bigger. If you looked at the column here for the proposed budget of 2024, assuming that we hit this $526,000 in revenue, which right now we're on, for 6 months of the year, we're right at that number. We're a little over it. You're looking at $997,000 in expenses on a $500,000 revenue stream. That's largely made up of this $605,000 that we're talking about transferring, which includes the already budgeted $168,000. So this 471 will come off of what the balance was at the beginning of the year. And that leaves you with a net balance as of 12/31 of 184,000. And you say, well, how does that get you to the 255? Well, how that does is, let me go back to, oh, I don't have it on yet. I have to get out of this. I do. I was going to show you how the savings was generated, but I'll go back to The 184,000 that's brought back down, the principal that was budgeted and the interest that was budgeted for 11 months. Because we assumed you were gonna get the loan in February. You got the loan in July. So we're gonna save from the current budget, which is in that $471,000 amount. You're saving 57,000 in principal payments and 12,600 in interest payments. That's hard savings. That is, you realize that gain. So you're looking at an estimated CSUT fund balance of 255,000 right there if you hit that budget. So that's the goal, is hit that budget. So what I wanted to show on this slide, over in this column right here, is this is where you currently are for the year. If you were looking at meeting the $526,000 revenue stream, let's say we got it, just like we planned, and we budgeted the $605,000 to pay, we actually made that payment. You would end the year right now with where you are for 6 months, with about a little over $100,000 in an amount that would gain you the 255,000. So all he has to play with for the rest of the year is $100,000 in all those other accounts that make up your budget, all of these accounts. And so right now you'll see that there's some things you can also do, because we're playing off of the operating budget. The first line item there that you see is this line item called capital expenditures, and you'll see an amount there that was an unbudgeted amount, unbudgeted, 4,600. That's that ice machine. Under 5,000, it was bought and put into the pavilion to house the at least pavilions of revenue producing center. You don't want to have it decrease your revenue because people aren't renting it because you don't have equipment in it. So that could be moved if we needed to back to the operating, because your budget there is to generate a surplus of $6,711. So you can do that and it would not negatively impact the general fund's operating because it's your surplus over there. But these are things that we would do as we get closer to the end of the year and we see where our actual cash flow is and where our cash balance is ending up. So he has seen the numbers. He knows the $100,000 is where he has to kind of manage his expenditures in this account, in all of these accounts. Hopefully he doesn't have a lot more playground equipment to have to repair, because you see his $6,000 budget, he's at $4,200 already right here. And his $8,500 for his maintenance and repairs to the building, he's about halfway there, a little more than half. So he's got to watch that. Can't go over anymore and start throwing things in there. This $118,000, as I showed you on an $85,000 budget for the capital improvement projects, includes the trail lighting system, and that's because cash flow kicked it into this year, because that's when we got the invoice. And that was last year's budget item. You gotta remember though that 118 was in this 656,000. Had that been paid last year, this number would have been lower. So
Tom, quick question on the county sales tax. Where were we with the budget for the year?
on the county sales tax, you're down about 0.3% from growth. We don't have any growth, we have negative growth. We're actually below where we were last year in collections right now. And that does affect you guys negatively because the county is your operating.
Because that account, the 61,500 materials and supplies for $8,900 is well over the $2,000 budget. Was that $4,397? You bought plaques for the Memorial Park? How much of them are sold? But did you have them on hand to engrave or not?
No, they have to have inventory in order to engrave them. So instead of, so they're not gonna pick an order for 2 or 3 of them at a time. I think they come from South Dakota. They want it to be worth their while, so they ask you to buy a pallet of them. So the closest thing to a pallet was 75. I think we bought 80 just in case they have some ship outs. And that's what finishes the part.
We have 80 left.
70, somewhere in
Kirby,
70
Kirby
to 80
with
range.
blanks, we got
Right.
80.
And the generator for $1,180?
That's correct.
How much is a pallet?
Sorry,
How much is a pallet?
I think it was in the $3,000 range.
The total amount was $4,397. And the $1,180 for the generator, that's in that $8,900.
Yeah, and that's 61, I think it's 61500. That line item can be zip pads, trash bags, those monuments, oil from O'Reilly, blades, belts.
You got auto parts in there also.
Yeah.
But you have an account, maintenance and repairs for equipment.
Yeah, that's maintenance and repairs. It's not us going to buy oil or spark plug. So if I took a truck for an oil change, then that would fall into the maintenance and repair category. But if I
Yeah, but
could
it's-
buy a spark plug, then I would put it myself, I have to put it under this category, which is like basically a catch-all.
Because you're over on your maintenance, repairs, equipment already.
What you see above you on the screen, this is what they're talking about.
Yeah, I know, I understand.
Materials and supplies, and the Cotton monuments, these are the bills for the headstones or the placer stones, I don't know what you call them, but the memorial stone. So there were 2 invoices, 1978, 1979, and it's around $4,300.
The 3,300 is a pallet of stones, and then the 1,000 underneath that is actually like 14 stone being engraved, or 13, 14, something like that.
That's correct, engraving 19,
19.
engraving 19 stones.
I don't know. To me, that almost needs to be a separate line item somewhere in there.
When we get that filled out, will that complete the park then? Or are you gonna,
So,
unless you find another place, put some more curbing?
yeah, sure. I can't imagine them putting them on the outside because then they'll be ran over.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, that'll complete our park. So what happens after that? I guess you just can't get in.
Either that or we can do some more of those plaques like they have around the square.
Okay.
Can I get a copy of, Casey, could I get a copy of the budget on the splash pad?
Sure. Like what the numbers we just looked at, so those me.
Yeah, because if I recall, the original budget or the listing that we had showed electrical at $4,000 and you just spent $13,000.
It's 15,000. Because that was the cautious estimate that Seth and I had put in place.
Can I get an updated one?
I think he was looking at the electrical in the actual Crawford.
Oh, okay.
That's not what you were looking at.
No, yeah, this is, so Crawford's pay app, that sheet that they have broke down for the splash pad is completely different from what we just looked at. That's the actual like transmission line from Swepco to get power from Main Street up to the side of the splash pad.
Because what I was looking at,
Pulled up that we looked at last night from Swepco.
Well, I have it over here.
Do you remember this? Remember this sheet? Do you remember this original sheet?
Oh, that's only for the splash pad.
Well, what I was looking at was the electrical was $4,000.
That's right. That's
And when I
only for the inside, the site plan of the splash pad. That would not include getting electricity to it.
So that was not in the budget.
Yes, it was. Yeah, whenever we looked at the options, I had a gigantic Excel document on the screen.
But this is the one that's one.
This is what I showed y'all. So we talked about for a good while which
Okay,
option we were going to choose.
total 1,478,000.
That's correct.
All right, show me where that 13,000 is in here.
It's not in there because that's separate.
So addition into the budget, what we chose, the commission chose $1,478,000. There's additional monies.
1,478,000 includes all of these options right here, with the exception of these options right here.
Okay, can I get a copy of that, please?
It's right here. It's right there.
Okay. I got it.
He's got it.
I got it. Well, the vortexes, that's for the pop-up sprinklers and stuff.
That's correct. Yeah, we chose to do those separate because we purchased them through a national purchasing program that provided about a 15 to 20% discount.
Okay. Any questions? Are you all confused? Any comments?
She's saying that all he has left is $100,000 to get through to next year. He spent everything.
We were, everything we budgeted.
Got about $100,000 left to go another 6 months.
Can we get a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
A second?
I second the motion.
I think this is an extra copy.
Gwen?
Somehow it's not up.